Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Nibbelink. I'm the creator of Apples and Genos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy. And in this podcast, Blake and I are going to talk about the biggest hot shots and have nots of the last couple of weeks. Let's get it. And of course, I have your friend and my best friend. He's unusual and exceedingly peculiar and altogether quite impossible to describe. Blake, how are you feeling tonight?
Oh, you biffed it, buddy. What are you doing? Oh, it's right here. I'm looking at the show sheet. I'm like, I can't wait to hear Nate say these words. And then that's what was provided there. Anyways, that's fine, buddy. I appreciate that. Peculiar? Sure. All right. That's what my mom says. All right. And then that's my mom. I mean, she knows what's going on. So I don't know. Buddy, I'm doing good. We were talking earlier before the show here. Awesome Sunday here that I had. My son is playing. He's 5 years old. He's playing out on the ice there. He's playing some hockey. He was playing this morning, and it was just a great day. Today was his first day where he really was getting up and feeling confident out there, and he was taking some shots and falling all over the place. I mean, kids have the most spectacular falls. Like, it's just bizarre. Aren't like every limb is just flailing. I mean, I can't believe he's still able to walk, but yeah, it was awesome. He was having such a great time. So it was a great morning for me. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, yesterday, Saturday, I was out with the boys. We went to the PWHL Toronto game, and yeah, it was a great time. Coca-Cola was rocking. It was a great game. We had some dirty dangles. It was actually like lots of scoring. PWHL is usually pretty low scoring, but in this game there was tons of scoring. It was a 6-3 final.
Yeah.
Yeah, the place was going nuts the whole time. Yeah, had a great time seeing all the guys again. A lot of guys that we've met up a few times with now in Toronto. So it was a good time. Good time had by all. Wish that the Scepters could pull out the W, but it was a great game nonetheless. Blake, I think we need to get rolling though because we do have some newsies. Newsies for the people. And right off the top, we have Petr Mrazek, the zero-G hero of the early going this year, injured his groin, out 1 to 2 weeks. This is a little bit more concerning than just the original prognosis. Mrazek has struggled with this particular injury in the past, and that makes me a little bit worried about what might be in store. I don't know, Blake, can I interest you in some Arvid Soderblom?
Gesundheit. That's a sweet name, actually. Arvids. I'll draft him strictly for the name, but I don't know. The jury's out for me on Chicago right now because we got a coaching change in there. So yeah, I mean, I'm vaguely interested. He's gonna get some run there, but I think I'd wait to see kind of how they show up here for this new coach.
Yeah, I think that's fair. For whatever it's worth, Soderblom does have a 915 save percentage on the year. It's not like he's been terrible when called upon, but definitely Mrazek has been a volume starter for Chicago thus far in the season, and Brossoit is still some time away. Had to have another procedure. So, yeah, still some time before Brossoit is back, but that opens the door for Soderblom to capture some volume if that's what you need over the next 1 to 2 weeks. Over to Anaheim, Trevor Zegras is going on IR, is already on IR, I guess you should say. Further examination on Monday, and that's when we'll likely get some sort of timeline here. But yeah, definitely didn't look good, that injury. Non-contact, really kind of injury, and yeah, it looked like something did not go right in his lower leg there. So hoping
What an
for the
amazing
best
analysis right there, Nate. I love that.
Amazing, yes.
Yeah.
You can tell I'm a doctor in my work outside of fantasy hockey, can't
Yeah,
you?
very professional.
Yeah. Feel for the guy. Feel for Zegras. Obviously, been a tough year for him. Looks like he is having absolutely no fun playing hockey. Every time he scores a goal, he just has the most deadpan face I've ever seen. And yeah, it's just tough to see from a guy who is shaping up to be one of the faces of the NHL for a hot minute there. Yeah, wishing all the best for Trevor Zegras at this point. Nikita Kucherov back in here on Sunday. Unfortunately for the Lightning, Kucherov in, Cirelli out. Anthony Cirelli took a hard hit along the boards, kind of folded over the bench boards there, and was out for the rest of the game. No update after the game. We'll have to see what comes of that. But yeah, tough scene for Cirelli, the recent Team Canada nominee. Over to the Isles, we have Anthony Duclair, Matt Barzal, both skating on their own. Do they even need these two players with Anders Lee, the superhuman, playing for them? Who knows? But yeah, they're skating on their own. They're probably still some time away, but a good sign for both that we should expect them back in the not so distant future. What do you think, Blake? Do they actually need these guys, or can Anders Lee carry this ship?
For God's sakes, get healthy, boys. This team is a train wreck. They got caved in today against Ottawa, and if Ilya Sorokin doesn't stand on his head, they're getting demoed. So yeah, the Isles are. It's rough times over there, but I mean, when you have one of the best goalies in the world, it at least gives you a chance from game to game. And they cooked on the power play today. But yeah, these guys need to be out on the ice ASAP.
For sure. Heading over to the Rangers, big weekend for the Shesterkins. Igor Shesterkin signs the huge deal, biggest deal ever for a goaltender, 8 years, 11.5 million per, and then misses the game here Sunday for the birth of his child. So just yeah, good weekend to be a Shesterkin, I guess you could say. Hoping for a healthy baby and healthy father coming back to the Rangers. They could use some positive things around that team at this moment in time for sure. Staying in the Nets, Joey Daccord missed that same game actually against the Rangers with an illness. Doesn't sound like it's anything more than just one game out. Probably should be back later this week. Don't need to read too much into that there. And then lastly, we got Nikolai Ehlers going to be back skating with the team this week. Could return to the lineup this week as well. I'm sure that Winnipeg could use that given how today went. I think they'll be happy to avoid any more 4-1 losses to the Columbus Blue Jackets in the near future, and Ehlers should help with that. Anything else, Blake? Anything I missed? Are you waiting for Ehlers back in any leagues?
Yeah, I have them in two spots, so I'll be happy. I mean, Jets start losing games when Ehlers goes down. Coincidence? I think not. All right, Mr. Arneal, please get Ehlers out there. Give him the 20-minute treatment. What are you doing? He's obviously a good coach, and the Jets are really good. But you know what else I was thinking too when I hear Shesterkin got all that money? What the hell would you do with $11.5 million? Like, I like to think I would just give some away. Like, it's 11.5. I mean, how much money do you need? I'd be like, I'd like my parents. I'd be like, here, have a mill. My brother, I'd be like, here's 1 mil. Like, just enjoy that. Would you think you would do that as well?
Yeah, I think there's like a certain amount of money where I would not have any idea what to do with it. And it's
Yeah.
probably a pretty relatively low number
Yeah, give me
relative to all these kinds of
100,000. I'd
money.
be like, okay, like let's
Yeah.
go. You know what I always wanted as a kid is like a toy shopping spree. Did you ever like? There was this
Mm.
show. I grew up in Alberta. It was called Kid Street, and if you win the show, you get a shopping spree with like this whole rack of toys, and you just
Yeah,
go
yeah.
chaotic. Yeah, that was always my dream. So yeah, if I had, let's say 100 grand to just go spend at Toys R Us, that would make me really happy. Give me a lot of joy. All right. Sorry about that, folks. I'm digressing, but I like toys.
All right. We'll leave Blake to his toys. And yeah,
I don't know where
I'm
you're going
gonna
with
I'm
that.
gonna leave I'm
Yeah,
gonna leave that one
just
alone. I,
yeah,
I
but
thought about it for a minute, but I'm
yeah.
gonna leave that one
Well,
alone.
let's not rule anything out, Nate. All right, let's move on.
All right. Speaking of things that are getting me a little bit hot, these hot shots we got
Oh,
to talk about. Matthew Kachuk, safe to say he's back, Blake. It seems like he might be able to produce after all. People were pretty worried about Matthew Kachuk in the early going, but he's turned up to the tune of 5 goals, 9 assists, 14 points in his last
yeah,
5 games here. Now on pace for 36 goals and 107 points, where just a week ago everybody was crying about how Matthew Kachuk was never going to score again. So it goes to show these level of players can absolutely go off and change their entire season in the space of a week. If you had Matthew Kachuk, you probably did win your week. So
yeah.
congrats on that. Under the hood, looking good. I will say, like, the time on ice here is still under 18 and a half minutes, so it's not like it came with a huge boost in ice time, which is kind of what we're looking at for the long term prognosis
Yeah.
on Matthew Kachuk. But good to see at least that he's back to his scoring ways.
Yeah, for sure. I love to see it because you and I really enjoyed that conversation we had about Matthew Kachuk. I think from our projection show where it was, or maybe it was the first weekend. I don't even remember, but yeah, they're kind of giving him that 18-minute treatment where he's not even really the top offensive option on the team, or it seemed like he wasn't. So for him to come out and have a bunch of games like this, it's really nice to see. He's back up over the 100-point mark, his pace anyway. And Sam Bennett's playing good. Carter Verhaeghe was a massive buy low. He's starting to put the biscuit in the basket, so it makes total sense. And Matt Kachuk is just an elite player. Like that team over there is very good. They don't need Matt Kachuk to be, the best player on the ice every single night, right? They've got Reinhardt, who is unbelievable. They got Barkov, who's unbelievable. So they just have so many weapons over there in Florida, and it was okay for Matt Kachuk to kind of come out slow out the gates here. So I'd love to see it. I wouldn't expect this kind of pace moving forward, but I think we're still looking at like a 90 to 100-point pace for, I think that's where Kachuk will finish this season.
Yeah, I was just looking back at my projections. I had him for 18 minutes 45 seconds average time on ice, and that came out to a 96-point pace for
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
on the season. So yeah, on this season so far, in total in the 23 games he's played, he's on an 18-minute average time on ice. So yeah, I might walk him back just a hair from that, but also they've been a little bit more efficient, which is definitely possible. I'm not ruling that out either for a team as talented as Florida, that Kachuk could just be a little bit more efficient than I projected. And so, yeah, 95 points, somewhere in that range, feels pretty reliable for Matthew Kachuk at this point as a rest of season pace. Heading over to Montreal, we got Nick Suzuki, 2 goals, 6 assists, 8 points in his last five, about 18 and a half minutes there. 124 shots per 60, 35th individual scoring chances for per 60, and ninth in on ice scoring chances for per 60 over the last 5 games.
Okay.
Now on a 30-goal, 85-point pace is Nick Suzuki. Yeah, what are we thinking about Nick Suzuki at this point, Blake? Are we adjusting expectations on this man rest of season yet?
Um, yeah, maybe. I mean, I projected him for 78 points, and he's on an 85-point pace. So he's running hot. There's no question there. But this is a guy that does show out in those metrics like chance assists and shot assists. He's a great offensive contributor, right? That's what he does. And he's also pretty damn responsible defensively, and he's pretty efficient. So there's lots actually to like about Nick Suzuki. I remember 2 years ago, we're both talking yang on Nick Suzuki because he doesn't shoot and he doesn't get individual scoring chances for, right? And I don't think he ever will, but I think this is kind of like a leveled up Casey Middlestat. Like that's sort of
Mm-hmm.
what Nick Suzuki brings to the table, and he's getting all the run there in Montreal. In fact, like his ice time's a little bit down this year, but he's top line, top power play, and he's got an elite converter in Cole Caulfield on his line, and things are going pretty good. So, I mean, 85-point pace, that seems probably to me that's ceiling for Nick Suzuki, but I think like 75 to 85 points, that's where this guy lives, and I think we can bank on that.
Yeah, it is interesting. So I had him for 29 goals, 75 points, and that was in 21 minutes, 15 seconds average time on ice. That was
Yeah.
my preseason projection. Now, like I mentioned, 18 and a half over the last five here, obviously been able to score, but under 20 average time on ice on the season now. And it does seem like a good chunk of this is coming through a 17% shooting percentage and a 16% on ice shooting percentage. Nick Suzuki can shoot for a high percentage, like I had him projected for 15.5, but the on ice shooting percentage at 16 I don't think is sustainable. So I do think he walks back a bit from this point. I'd still probably hold him in the 75 to 80 range. I don't think I'm coming off my initial projection too much, especially if the lower ice time does continue to hold a bit and they do kind of run the lines a little bit more. Yeah, whether or not that does continue is up for debate, but I think I'd be shading him back down towards my original projection just based on the ice time so far and that on ice shooting percentage here in the early going.
I think the return of Kirby Doc makes a big difference as well. Like, you have a legit, he's probably a 3C potentially on another team, but they've got a guy that can actually do some stuff out there and take a little bit of a pressure off of Nick Suzuki there on the top line.
Fair enough. Anders Lee next up here, 3 goals, 7 points in his last 5. Apparently, all you need to be able to score a ridiculous amount of points is for Blake to select you in the head-to-head streamer deathmatch, and that's what happened for Anders Lee this week. So if you could let everybody know who you'll be selecting ahead of time, Blake, then I think you could do us all a big favor here. We can all go out and add them for our teams this week. But just about 18 minutes average time on ice, 165th shots per 60, 113th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 80th in Corsi, 4 per 60, and 62nd in on-ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. What do we make of Anders Lee's season to date 32 goal, 61-point pace? Do we think that even when Duclair and Barzal get back, is that a plus for him? Is that a minus for him? What's your temperature now on Anders Lee?
Yeah, well, first off, I mean, that's why you listen to Apples and Ginos, folks. All right, we give you the goods. All right, if you picked up Anders Lee this week, or even Kent Johnson, you're loving life. Okay, let's just say that right off the bat. But I think that Anders Lee has stepped up in the absence of Barzal for sure and Duclair. So when those guys return, he's going to go back to kind of a previous role. He has done this before, like to some degree. Right now he's on a 65-point pace, so he's obviously running hot, right? His IPP at 5-on-5, ridiculous. It's almost 90%. Okay, like that's going to go down. There's no question. So he's on a mega heater. His shooting percentage is pretty damn high as well. But one thing I like about Anders Lee is the shots on goal per 60. Even at 5-on-5, that's pretty darn good. He's almost at 9 shots on goal per 60 at 5-on-5, which he has done before, right? And now with Barzal and Duclair out, he's getting power play 1, which he is doing some stuff. Like he got a goal and an assist tonight here on Sunday on the power play. So he's doing stuff out there. But I don't expect this to continue at all. 65-point pace, no. I think probably like a 50 to 55-point pace rest of the season for Anders Lee is where he lives, because I think he's going to probably get bounced off power play 1 potentially when those guys return. But it's still going to be a ways away. Barzal is skating apparently, like you said, and Duclair. So we'll see what happens. I think Anders Lee is the captain as well, so he's got something over Duclair as well. So he could hold on to power play 1, which is that's in the realm of possibilities. But he's just on a heater right now. There's no question. I wouldn't really expect this type of pace moving forward.
All right, moving along, we gotta go to your hometown guy there, Blake, in Vancouver, Jake DeBrusk, guy that you had as sleeper coming into the season. Was on a fair number of people's lists, to be fair. It wasn't only you that was touting
Why'd
this.
you say that? What are you doing? No, come on.
All right. Only
no
Blake
one
Creamer
called this besides us. All right, come on.
Yeah. Only Blake was talking about Jake DeBrusk before the season. No, obviously he's had a nice little stretch here. The last 5 games, 6 goals, 7 points, almost 20 minutes a night, 58th shots per 60, 73rd individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 in the low 100s in Corsi 4 and on-ice scoring chances 4. So good stuff there. 38 goal, 66-point pace now on the season. What's your temperature here on DeBrusk? Do you think that he hangs on to this? Obviously, the Canucks have been missing some key personnel for a good chunk of this run. That's why he's been getting some extra minutes. But do you think he's done enough now to hang on to that when everybody's back and healthy?
It's hard to say, right? Because the Canucks are so decimated. Like JT Miller is it's a gaping hole. You can't I don't even want to continue that sentence. That sounds terrible. But, anyways, it's a big loss to not have JT Miller in there. So everybody is stepping up. And Jake DeBrusk has been a big benefactor of that, right? But the fact is, still at 5-on-5, he's not doing much, right? He's getting some looks on the power play, which is really nice. But IPP is low at 5-on-5. Shots on goal per 60, pretty low. But his shooting percentage is high. So he's converting a lot. He's shooting less. So that is pretty typical sell high stuff to me. So it's just something to keep in mind, right? Because JT Miller, there's potential that he could return this week. He's skating right now. He's ramping up his activities. The Canucks have a plan to get him back into game action. It could be this upcoming week. It could be the week after. I think that's probably pretty realistic. So what happens to Jake DeBrusk when Miller comes back? I think he's shown some chemistry with Elias Pettersson, so I think he'll stay there, and JT Miller will go with Brock Besser. So they'll do that again in their top six. But yeah, this guy's on a heater, no question. His on-ice shooting percentage at 515 is career high level right now at almost 13% as well. So this is going to come down, folks. But I also thought he was really underperforming early on in the season. So it's somewhere in between. I think I like the 66-point pace. I think 60 to 65 points. That's what we projected, or what I projected DeBrus for heading into the season. And I think if he lands there at the end, we're going to be looking at a very successful sleeper pick here. And there's one thing that I would say too, just from some Boston fans that I've talked to, and just what I've seen on the ice too, is like this guy has a penchant for kind of taking shifts off here and there. And Tocchet doesn't like that. No one likes that, obviously, but Tocchet will definitely hold players accountable. So he's not doing that right now, Jake DeBrusk. So as long as he sort of keeps going at the effort level that he is, I think, 66 points is absolutely in reach here.
All right. I don't have too much to add there. I had DeBrusk projected for 28 goals, 60 points at the start of the season, and that was in under 18 minutes average time on ice. So, yeah, I was relatively high on his potential there in Vancouver as well. And I think he's still the most logical candidate for top power play usage even when they're fully healthy. What that looks like game to game throughout the rest of the season is still up for debate, but I think, yeah, he's probably running a bit hot, but even if he comes back down, I still think 60-point pace is within the cards here. Moving over to St. Louis, we have Dylan Holloway up next. Dylan Holloway's been on a little bit of a heater. 5 goals, 7 points in his last 5, 16 and a half minutes. Average time on ice, 20th in shots per 60, 24th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. The on-ice numbers not great, 211 in Corsi, 4 per 60, 122 in scoring chances, 4 per 60. Is this anything more than just a hot streak from Holloway? The underlying metrics on the individual level are telling us a pretty good story, but do you think there's more to be seen here from Dylan Holloway?
It's a player of interest for sure, but it kind of starts and ends for me with the deployment, right? This is a third line guy on the second power play. It's not enough deployment and opportunity for me to be truly in on Dylan Holloway. But as a streamer, St. Louis streamer, yeah, I'm on board with this. Like, he also has a really good peripheral floor, aka pelvic floor. All right. He does Kegels. He does that. All right. So is that right? Kegels? Is that the right word, Nate? I don't know. Nate's muted right now. Nate's just ignoring me, and that's fine. But yeah. Also, another thing I like about Dylan Holloway, frosted tips. He's got them. Ooh. Okay. So, yeah, I don't know where I'm going
that's
with that.
From your era? Is that what you're saying?
What are you doing? This is a 23-year-old man, Nate. All right. My era is his era. All right. I had frosted tips at one point, actually. There is pictures, and I may or may not release them at some points. Anyways, yeah, I until the deployment comes up, I'm not fully in on Holloway here. Like, he's got a 50-point pace, maybe. But the one thing's for sure, this was a great offer sheet that the St. Louis Blues did, and they really got a player here. He's young, like I said, 23. This is a guy that can really grow into this team. And now we've got Montgomery there as the head coach. I think it's going to be just trending upwards. I think this is the type of player that Montgomery likes, and he's a beefer. 49 hits in 28 games, my guy. Calm down. All right. But yeah, where are you at with Dylan Holloway?
Yeah, I'm pretty interested. The shots have been trending up over the course of the season. It's definitely not great in terms of deployment, right? Like, second power play and on a line with Oscar Sundqvist and Zach Bolduc. That's obviously not where you want to be in St. Louis. But, I mean, how much longer does Jake Neighbors hold on to his spot if Dylan Holloway's doing this? I don't know. So I think there's room for him to grow from this point, and you gotta love the underlying metrics on the individual level. I think, honestly, being held back by his teammates, maybe not in the last 5 games here, but on the season. And so that's definitely of interest to me. I think there's room to grow deployment wise for Holloway if he continues to put this hot streak together with the underlying numbers. I think more good things will come his way. So yeah, Holloway is probably not much more than a streamer at this point, but I do think there's a lot of potential here for him to grow into something more. Shane Gostisbehere, 7 assists, no goals, but 7 assists in his last 5. Just over 19 minutes average time on ice as he does. 62nd shots per 60, 51st individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, but first amongst all defensemen in the last 5 games in Corsi, 4 per 60, and 6th in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Now on pace for 15 goals and 73 points on the season is Shane Gostisbehere. So, how much of this is real? How much can we really trust Shane Gostisbehere, who has not been a guy known for his consistency game to game or even week to week in the last number of years? Is Carolina just good enough that Gostisbehere will achieve this kind of like 70-point pace rest of season, Blake?
You know what it is? He's, and obviously you know what it is, but he's an amazing power play performer. And Carolina has the second best power play in the NHL. And he's the quarterback, Shane Gostisbehere, and he's cooking. He has 24 points on the year. 17 of those are on the power play. So, if you're just looking at Shane Gostisbehere with rose-colored glasses, you're like, wow, 73-point pace. This guy's amazing. And, he is on the power play. All right. But if you go into his 5-on-5 numbers, damn. All right, it doesn't look good. Okay, like this guy's got a 23% IPP at 5-on-5. Shots to goal per 60. Sure, they're fine, but he's doing nothing else. His on-ice shooting percentage is not anything crazy either. It's all power play stuff. So that said, though, too, that power play one is not going anywhere. He's going to be the guy all year. So I don't expect this to continue, right? A 73-point pace, but he got 56 points in 81 games last year. I think that's absolutely reasonable, with a touch more probably available because he's on a better team to me. I think he could get 60 points or just over 60 points there with access to that power play and that legend, Martin Necas. Yeah, he just give the puck to Necas. All right. It's, I've mentioned this before. It's like the Fresh Prince episode. Give it to Will. All right. You just give it to Necas, let him do his work. That's how Shane Gostisbehere gets his points. No, that's not true. But yeah, anyways, just know that Shane Gostisbehere is a premium power play performer and a subpar 5-on-5 performer. So what if that power play goes cold? Now Shane Gostisbehere is giving you donuts on a nightly basis. So something to think about, because he doesn't bring any peripherals to the table either.
Yeah, that's definitely always been the yin and yang, I guess, of rostering Shane Gostisbehere is
Yeah.
if he's not bringing you power play assists, he's probably not bringing you much else. And so, yeah, for whatever that's worth, I do think you got to keep that in account in your mind. But honestly, like, I'm struggling to see what is going to be really the source of his downfall. He's got a 53% IBP. Okay, that's probably high, but that being high and maybe the 13.4% on ice shooting percentage being high, is it that high when you consider that really it's all coming on the power play? And that's a significant chunk of his minutes. It's a bigger chunk of his minutes than most other defensemen because he only plays 19 minutes a night and he plays 3 to 4 of that on the power play,
Yeah.
right?
What does it
So
matter?
exactly. So I do think he can be more efficient than a lot of other defensemen in terms of those luck metrics that we like to look at. So yeah, I think like 65 points is definitely quite possible for Gostisbehere as long as Carolina's power play continues to work, with the obvious caveat that you stated of if this power play goes cold, Shane Gostisbehere becomes borderline unrosterable, and you got to make that equation for yourself on how long you're going to hold him if and when the Carolina
Yep.
power play does run cold. Another defenseman that we want to talk about here, Vince Dunn, since returning from injury in his 5 games since then, he's got 2 goals, 6 points, almost 23 minutes a night, 40th shots per 60, 123 in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 11th in on-ice Corsi, 4 per 60, and 32nd in on-ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Now he's on pace. I mean, he's only played 9 games, but he's on pace for a 27-goal, 82-point season. What do you make of Vince Dunn and the situation now? You've got Brandon Montour there, obviously. Montour is getting a ton of power play time while Vince Dunn was out. In this latest game, it was Vince Dunn getting all the power play time on that top unit, the Jared McCann unit. What do you think, Blake? Do we have something here with Vince Dunn that we weren't expecting?
I don't know. This is one of those players like Matt Duchene to me. It's like, how does he keep doing this? Like his shooting percentage is 14.3%, and he's had 2 straight years of 9%, which is pretty damn high for a defenseman, right? That's very high. So he's obviously an efficient shooter from the back end. I mean, 14%, that's way too much, but he's shown that he can hit 9%, which is, like we said, that's double-digit goal territory for defensemen. So, plus he's getting power play 1 over there in Seattle. Like, I think we have to expect it until we see otherwise, right? This is a guy that has really come into his own here in Seattle, and I was surprised that they gave him, the top power play treatment right off the bat, considering how well the full Monty Brandon Montour played and continues to play. He's still having a decent season in his own right. So, this is a tough one for me. I don't really have a pulse on Vince Dunn. I didn't get him anywhere, and it's one of these guys. He's based off of a lot of efficiency, but I think under the hood and in things like microstats as well, like, this guy really shows out. He's a very good offensive defenseman. And I think, 82 points, no, but the 2 seasons prior to this, he paced for over 60 points. So I think 60-point pace, Vince Dunn, makes some sense moving forward. It's just Seattle as well. Like, have you found this as well? Like, under Dan Bilesma, it doesn't feel that different than it did under Dave Haxtell. Like, he's still rolling out 4 lines. He's pissing us off. He's, at least he seems to be going to a top power play recently, which I like to see. But I don't know. Where are you at with the Kraken and Vince Dunn as well?
Yeah, I'm pretty into Vince Dunn. I just looked back to see because I was pretty sure I had a lot, but yeah, I looked back at my best ball that I was doing on drafters
Oh,
before the
you had
season,
him?
and he was my second highest picked defenseman at 27%,
Nice.
just behind Dougie Hamilton, just above Zach Werenski. So yeah, I was pretty into Vince Dunn at that point. Obviously, it was cost included because he was going in like the last round of drafts almost. But yeah, he always just kind of made sense to me from that front. I wasn't expecting like a massive season, but he's always been a very efficient player at even strength, which is a really underrated thing for a defenseman to be, in my opinion. Like, I think one of the things that everybody has gotten wrong about Aaron Ekblad for a lot of years is that they think he should, he's getting a crazy amount of minutes, so he should be able to put up offensive numbers, but he's never been
Right.
good at even strength in terms of putting up numbers, being involved in the play, never had a high IPP. Whereas Vince Dunn is the polar opposite of that. Like, I had him projected for a 48% IPP at even strength, which is probably top 5, top 10 in the league amongst all defensemen. So he's always been that guy to me. I had him for her 12 goals, 52 points at the start of the season with kind of a split of power play time kind of factored in there. And so I did see some potential for Vince Dunn to, kind of exceed his draft position. He was going pretty late in drafts. I do like Vince Dunn from that perspective. I don't think that this particular level keeps
Yeah.
going for all that time, but I do think that he's a very rosterable defenseman, 3-4 defenseman on your fantasy squad in that range. I think he can be that. And then, as we talked about, I think I specifically mentioned Vince Dunn when talking about this multiplayer, where if the other guy gets injured for any length of time, Vince Dunn immediately becomes super valuable, gets all the power play time, and does that. The one thing that I do like about Dan Bilesma over Dave Haxtell is that he's finally giving Jared McCann some minutes, over 18 and a half minutes in the last little bit, which is about as good as it's ever been for Jared McCann. Now, of course, he's only got 1 goal his last 5 games, which we'll talk about in a minute here. But yeah, there's very small things, I guess, to hang on to with the change in coaching there. But overall, it does feel like it's been a little bit of the same from the Kraken as a team. All right. Headed over to the Patreon plug. Supporter tier, $2 a month gets you access to patron-only live shows. There will be one here on Monday, the 9th. For anyone who's interested, I'll be going live in the Discord server. You have to join the supporter tier and connect to Discord through Patreon, and you'll be able to get into that thing live. You can ask questions. I'm going to be reviewing a whole bunch of patrons' teams and trying to pull out lessons for all of us there, not just for the individual people who are getting their teams reviewed. Usually, I think that that kind of content is actually really helpful for people because they can see specific things that I would do with a specific team given a specific set of circumstances, but they're able to apply that pretty widely to their own teams. So I really think that that's going to be super helpful to a lot of people. At the Apples tier, $8 a month gets you access to those patron-only live shows, gets you access to patron-only Discord channels, and will get you access to the show notes, gets you access to these flagship shows. Those show notes get you the access to the waiver wire show notes, which gives you all the rankings, all the players that we're interested in, all the teams to target, gets you all of that in written form so you can refer to it as you're looking through your ads to make for the week. It also gets you access to the Apples and Geos player evaluation tool where we're pulling all this data, last 5 games, season paces, all this kind of stuff we've got there. If you are a true degenerate when it comes to fantasy hockey, $15 a month gets you all those perks plus every single question answered, guaranteed by yours truly. Blake, are you ready for the have-nots?
I'm always ready, buddy, but you always forget to mention the last piece, all right? For an extra fee, all right? And this is where we're not telling you what the fee is, but, you pay this extra fee, you get to play laser tag with Nate and myself. Oh, yeah, buddy, you ever play laser tag? I mean, Nate and I haven't played in a long time, but, it's good, clean fun. Am I right, Nate?
It's great, clean fun. Another way to cross the streams in another sense.
Oh, yeah, the
You can
laser
get that done.
streams. Oh, what? And then if you cross the laser streams and the actual streams together, oh my God, what even happens? Like a vortex creates in space time. Anyways, let's move on. We can talk about that all day. I don't want to do that again.
You're gonna have to save that one and workshop it for
Sure.
the
Yeah,
next
I'll
waiver wire
workshop it.
episode.
I'll get the focus group.
Yeah, let's get it done. Let's get into it though. Let's talk about Philip Forsberg off the top. This is a really interesting one for me. I've been preaching patience with Philip Forsberg almost 20 minutes a night. He's got no points in his last 5. Might even go back further than that. I didn't actually check to see if it went back further than this 5-game stretch. It does. It's a 6-game pointless
It's
streak
bad.
for Philip Forsberg. But I mean, 39 shots per 60, second in shot attempts per 60, 10th in individual scoring chances for per 60. Even the on ice numbers look good. 16th Corsi 4 per 60, 44th on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. On the season, this is the guy ranking first in the league in shot attempts per 60 and getting 19 plus minutes a night. And somehow he's still on pace for 26 goals and 50 points. Frankly, ridiculous how unlucky Philip Forsberg has been so far this season. 52% IPP, 9.2% shooting percentage, 10.3% on ice shooting percentage. Honestly, Philip Forsberg looks just as good, if not better, than last year to me under the hood. This is the biggest buy low in the league to me right now.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. This guy's an absolute buy low, but I do think we have to temper expectations a little bit. Like, I don't think that this version of Forsberg is going to pop off the way last year's version did because of the roster construction of the Nashville Predators. Like, yeah, he's number 1 in the league in individual Corsi 4. Like, this team chucks pucks with the best of them. Like, in the last 2 weeks, the Nashville Predators are 4th overall in Corsi 4 per 60. They do that at 5-on-5, no problem. But like, I was just digging in, even just this last game here, and this is from Frozen Tools here, Dauber Frozen Tools, but against the Senators, Forsberg's line of Nyquist, Stamkos, and Forsberg, their Corsi 4 to Corsi against was 17 Corsi 4, 12 Corsi against. That's a 58% Corsi 4 percentage, but they were outshot 10-3. Like, that's really weird. It's like, so how are they generating their offense? And something I've noticed recently, like even just watching the games and looking into some of the metrics, is like they're decent off the rush. They come in and might get a shot off the rush, but there's no sustained pressure. So they have no problem chucking pucks, but their other teams are just jamming the puck right down their throats the next play there. So there's something off with the way that this team is constructed and maybe even being coached. And I know we're both fans of Andrew Brunette as a coach, but something's off here. And I don't know if it's, team speed or what it is, but, and now we've got Ryan O'Reilly out for a little bit here. So Forsberg doesn't have his main center that he was playing with. It's just, I'm tempering expectations with Forsberg. Yes, he's a massive buy low. I love the metrics, but I don't know. I don't like this team, Nashville. They're dead last in the league in goals for. Dead last. What? You add 240 goal scorers and you become last in the league. It's mind-boggling. This guy, he had 94 points last year. He's pacing for 50 right now. So he's definitely not going to get 50, but I don't think he's going to come close to a 90-point pace moving forward. I think best case scenario, we get like a point per game pace from Philip Forsberg moving forward. And hopefully this team figures it out, because this man has a beautiful mustache and it needs to be recognized. I mean, he uses all kinds of product in there, and he needs to be rewarded for that. So Where the hell am I going with that? Yeah, I love Philip. Long story short, Philip Forsberg's a stud, but let's temper expectations.
All right, I got a few would you rather's for you on the Philip Forsberg topic here,
Nice.
Blake. Andrei Svechnikov or Philip Forsberg?
Ooh, I think I got to go Forsberg on that. I'm taking Forsberg.
All right, let's move up. Cole Caulfield or Philip Forsberg?
Forsberg, got to do it.
Brandon Hagel or Philip Forsberg?
Oh, I'm going Forsberg there. And that one actually kind of hurts because Hagel's doing stuff, and I like Hagel a lot. But I mean, this is one of those cases where you have to look at the metrics and be like, eventually he's going to start hitting the net, right? Yeah, he's chucking pucks. He's not hitting the net. So eventually he's going to start hitting the net. Those pucks are going to go in. I'm taking Forsberg there.
Tim Stützle or Philip Forsberg?
Ooh, now you're getting spicy on me because Stutz is going nuts. This is a guy that doesn't even have the same statistical profile, but I think he's in a better offensive situation. I might go Stutz there.
All right. So we found the line there. I'll throw a couple more at you briefly. Jesper Bratt or Philip Forsberg?
Oh God, you're really putting me through my paces here. You know what? I want to choose Forsberg because of history, but Bratt is on. He's he's with Jack Hughes. That's the best rushing team in the league. Hughes is figuring it out. Ooh, I might have to go Bratt on that.
Nice. One more, and we're going outside of the forward group. Zach Werenski or Philip Forsberg?
Oh, damn. I'm taking ZW over Forsberg. Jimmy
Nice.
Crack Hornet, I don't care. All right. I love ZW. This guy's on one this year, and I want to be in on that, although I have him on 5 of my 9 teams. So I'm pretty good with ZW here.
All right. Let's move on. Let's get over to Brock Nelson. He's got 0 points in his last 5, but
He's very
skating almost
grumpy
20
about this.
minutes a night. Very grumpy about this. Check out his latest picture. It looks the exact same as all of his others. 119th in shots per 60, 71st individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 219th in on ice Corsi, 4 per 60, 153 on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. On pace for 29 goals, 50 points on the season. Still got good underlying metrics, but obviously it's an Islanders thing. It's been a little bit tough for a lot of players over there. What's your prognosis on Brock Nelson? Similar to Anders Lee, does it get better or worse when we get Duclair and Barzal back in the mix?
I actually think he's going to get better when these guys get back in the lineup. I like Brock Nelson. I mean, obviously, I've been, call him the grumpiest man on earth. Like, all you have to do is look at his profile picture. It looks like he's either holding a fart in or he just released an SBD, which is a silent but deadly, and someone called him on it, and he's pretending he didn't do it. So definitely take a look at his profile picture there if you want to know what I'm talking about. But like metrics are good. I think he's a guy that needs some of these more talented offensive guys, right? Barzal, like just to take the pressure off, right? If you have Barzal and Horvat on line 1 and Nelson's on line 2 there, it's going to be a better ride for him, right? But, his shooting percentage is down a bit. His shots are still there, no problem. He's not doing anything on the power play, so I think that probably gets a little bit better, especially if Matt Barzal and Anthony Duclair come back, like whatever that looks like, right? I just think he's pretty cold right now, and this is definitely a buy low. It's not an exciting buy low, but right. I do think that the Islanders need those players back. They obviously need those players back. It's tough times there. Like I think that Patrick Waugh was close to potentially being canned if they didn't win these last 2 games, right? They won a back-to-back with Sorokin just stealing them 2 straight games, right? Even though they got caved in, like I said, on those nights. So I like Nelson better when those guys return. I think he could get back up to kind of 60-point pace, 65-point pace with room for more because he's done it before, right? This is a guy that the metrics are pretty damn good and his power play performance has been putrid so far.
Yep. I think that's a good shout there. My only concern really with Brock Nelson is when those two do come back to Claire and Barzal, is Nelson still a part of the top power play unit?
Right.
We have seen him move down already early in the season when everybody was healthy. And so if you could tell me right now that Brock Nelson is power play 1 rest of the season, no doubt, then I would consider him a pretty big buy low. But because we can't, and because I think there's already precedent there for him to be moved off the top unit, that has me a little bit skittish. Where I think like if that is the case and he is on power play 2, then maybe the best case scenario is like 55, maybe 60 points pace for the rest of the season. Whereas if he gets power play 1, then I think you're back up to where we were projecting him earlier on, and he could push towards 70. So that's the difference there for me, and it does have me a little bit worried about going out to acquire him. That being said, like, he's probably getting dropped in some more casual leagues right
Yeah.
now with this
What do you need
recent
to give up
stretch.
to
So
get Brock Nelson right now?
yeah, so it's definitely a question of how big the risk is there for sure. Moving along, Elias Lindholm doing another one of these cold stretches. He's shown up on this list for us a few times so far this season. He's got no points in his last 5. Does it go back further than that? No, just the last 5. Oh, yeah, he had that 3 assist game and then immediately embarked on another 5 game pointless streak. Some classic Elias Lindholm stuff for us this year. 19 and a half minutes average time on ice, 350th in shots per 60 is just absolutely atrocious stuff from a guy who's supposed to be your top line center. Mid 100s in rank in all the other metrics that we like to look at here. On pace for 8 goals and 37 points this season. What do you think, Blake? Like, are we kidding ourselves thinking that Elias Lindholm is ever going to be something in Boston?
No, but maybe this year. I think like you look at what's going on in Boston this year. Like no one's been playing well besides Brad Marchand. Really, Brad Marchand
Yeah.
has been awesome this year.
Mm-hmm.
But Elias Lindholm, yeah, this is a new face in a new place. Who the coach he was playing for has now been fired, and now he's playing for a different coach. And we saw this in Vancouver when he came here, although he was a little bit injured when he came here to Vancouver. This guy is a slow burner, and I think it takes him a little while to get acclimated. And this might just be one of those cases. Like, it's not like Matt Tkachuk going to Florida where they're like, hey, buddy, here you go. The team revolves around you. Go and get 100 points. Like, no,
Right.
this guy's he's a supplementary piece, and I feel like it could take him a little while to really kick in here. He's got a lot of term, a big contract there, so they have to play him. They have to trot him out there. He's getting amazing deployment and opportunity. He was playing with Marchand and Pasternak the other night.
Yep.
Buddy, what are you doing? What are you doing? And a lot of what Elias Lindholm does really well, it doesn't show up on the score sheet. I will say that, right? But we're talking fantasy hockey here, and this stinks. Like, this guy's a drop until further notice. Get him the hell out of my sight. He's not doing a damn thing. These metrics are putrid, but I could see Elias Lindholm getting hot in like the last third of the season, as long as this deployment and opportunity kind of sticks. I could see him putting a little run together, but for now, I'm definitely out on the player. Not forever. I do think he is going to be a good player there in Boston, but probably not this year.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that take with how things have gone here so far. Like, I say 350th in shots per 60 in the last 5. Like, that's terrible. It's better than his season long
Yeah,
number,
good Lord.
353. Um, yeah, it's really bad stuff so far from Elias Lindholm. The deployment is still there. I think basically I'm looking at Elias Lindholm as a guy I'd stream in on a week when Boston has a good schedule, and then I'd hope that that's the week that he starts getting it going and he turns into something more for my team.
Yep.
But I'm not holding out hope if you're still hanging on at this point. He's got to show it before at some point. Yeah, just hanging on to somebody who clearly does not have the confidence to put the buck in the net right now is just hurting your squad. So. Yeah, if somebody out there can just like put their hand up and be like, okay, I'll be the guy to drop Elias Lindholm so everybody else knows that he's about to go off, then that'd be great. We
I
can
already did
get
it,
this
buddy. I
arranged.
bounced his ass. Get the hell
All
off my
right.
team. So I'm taking one for the team here.
All right. So he's going to bounce back. Next game confirms.
Probably. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
All right. Another guy who's going to bounce back for sure. Jared McCann, 1 goal in his last 5 games, as I mentioned, over 18 and a half minutes, though. 29th in shots per 60, 51st individual scoring chances for per 60. He does that. On ice numbers, not so hot. 172nd in Corsi 4 per 60, 235th in on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. On pace for 28 goals, 65 points. Everything under the hood looks really reasonable to me at that level, and he's getting a little bit more ice time now. I'm actually kind of excited about Jared McCann personally. Somehow he managed to score exactly 0 points in this 7 goal outburst
Yep.
against the Rangers that the Kraken had here today on Sunday. Yeah, I think it's a blip. I think that Jerry McCann is that dude, and he should get back there sooner rather than later. I would definitely be trying to acquire Jerry McCann at the moment. What do you think, Blake?
Yeah. mega buy low here. It really does stink that he wasn't able to get in on the scoring here in this big game. And that's been the case the last few games, but just try and remember what it was like before that. Like this is a pretty elite offensive player. Like even digging in on some of the microstats here, Corey Schneider's microstats, like this again, chance assists, shot assists. One thing that he does really well is high danger assists. And that's an interesting piece because it's sort of you rely on your teammates to convert that, right?
Yeah.
And who's he been playing with lately? Chandler Stevenson. What is this guy doing? Chandler Stevenson doesn't even need a stick. He can do what he does just without a stick. You know what I mean? Just put your hands on the guy, stop him from, getting towards the net. I don't know. But I don't really have a lot of worries about Jared McCann. It's more just that Seattle situation that I am a little bit wary of. But like you said, McCann is getting some actual run. He's averaging 17 minutes, 48 seconds time on ice, which would be a career high for him. I want to see more. I like keep him going on the power play here. That's really where I think McCann needs to shine. But yeah, that Seattle is kind of like a Dallas Light to me. They just have anyone in the roster that can do it at any given night. And right now it's Oliver Bjorkstrand who's popping the hell off, where McCann is just picking up the scraps. He's just happy to be here. So yeah, that said, like, everything you said holds water. Like the metrics are great. The deployment is great. Just hang on. I want to shout out my boy, the fantasy hockey professor, Mike. Jared McCann's coming back. Don't worry. Don't even think about dropping Jared McCann. Look at that beautiful Adam's apple this man has. He's a man, baby. All right. Pure machismo. He's going to start cooking real soon.
Yes, Jared McCann infamously let go by Leafs because they had to hang on to
And the
Justin
Canucks.
Hall. Yeah.
We did that. I don't know.
Yeah, there's something to be said for these Canadian teams that we root for here, Blake, and their personnel choices over the last number of years. But we'll save that for another podcast and another time. Number 5 on the list, Yuri Slafkovsky, 1 assist in his last 5, just over 16 minutes average time on ice, 203rd shots per 60. Actually, pretty nice. 69th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. 266th in on ice Corsi, 4 per 60, 168 on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. On pace for 7 goals and 48 assists on this season so far. Definitely not what we were hoping for from Slafkovsky. This was a guy I was a little bit excited about coming into the season. Thought he could take a step based on what he did towards the end of last season.
Yeah.
But it has not panned out that way whatsoever. It does seem like this might be a guy who struggles with confidence from time to time. And slow start, very similar to the slow start he had last year. And so that's actually still giving me a little bit of hope that it could come back. That being said, on the second line with Doc and Line at the moment, he is still on the top power play, so that hasn't gone away just yet. But I don't know how excited I can reasonably be about Slafkovsky at this moment. Feels like a guy that, again, you might drop now if you've still been holding on, and you might wait to see him start to put the biscuit in the basket before you pick him back up.
Yeah. I didn't really get the high ADP that he had this year after a 20 goal, 30 assist showing in 82 games, which is very nice for like a young guy. But I wasn't really in on Slafkovsky as a high up sort of, or spending some draft capital on Slafkovsky. And yeah, I just think like this guy's not even 21 yet. He can't even buy beer legally in the States. All right. And he's got 14 points in 24 games in the NHL. And meanwhile, I'm in my basement with Mike Tyson's punch out pictures in the back here. All right. It's this guy's a legend. But, that said, yeah, there's going to be some growing pains here. Montreal is not a good team, especially defensively. So when you're playing behind all the time too, like it's hard to get going. It's just, and if he's taken off that line now, which he has been for Alex Newhook, my God. I mean, when you're losing, deployment opportunity to Alex Newhook, like things are not going well, right? So that said, yeah, I like that you brought up his slow start last year. This guy had 15 points in the first 42 games last year, and then popped off for the last 40. So now he's got 14 points in the first 24 games. So it's kind of in line with what he's done before, although the big difference is so far he's had power play 1, which he didn't have last year. So you'd like to see a little more there, but I just think, yeah, you're holding him. Like I'm not dropping Slafkovsky right now because he's got that power play 1. And I think Line returning to the lineup here could be a net positive for Slafkovsky because it just sort of takes the pressure off him to be a big scorer right? And Laine has been playing pretty well since he's come back. So I think you're going to have to exercise patience here. But I mean, for me, this is the reason why I wasn't really in on the player. He's not proven yet. And yeah, I think we're just seeing some growing pains here with this player.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Let's move along to Moritz Seider of the Detroit Red Wings. Been a tough run for him as of late. 0 points in his last five. Still skating 26 minutes a night. 59 shots per 60, 137 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 in the 80s in the on ice numbers that we like to look at. Now on pace for 6 goals, 39 points. Feels like we might be looking at yet another season for Moritz Seider in the 40 to 50 point range.
Yeah.
I just feel like we say this every time we talk about Seider, but I think both of us agree, Blake, this is not a guy who's ever going to have some massive offensive ceiling. He provides elite bangers, like
Yep.
definitely no shade there, but he's been on power play one for the last long stretch now, and I just don't think he's that dude from an offensive standpoint. Tell me if you think I'm wrong.
No, yeah, I can't disagree with you there. The problem is he came out and set the expectations high by winning the Calder, right? When a
Yeah.
defenseman wins the Calder and with like he had 50 points, that's his career high in his rookie season.
Yeah.
It's been only downhill from there offensively, right? And we have to remember that Moritz Seider is the guy that Derek Lalonde, coach of the year, throws out for the worst possible matchups. Like he's having the toughest matchups in the league, right? Moritz Seider, that's what he does. So it's pretty hard to mount some offense when you're out there playing against the other team's best players night in and night out. And it is a little bit surprising that he did get power play one and he hasn't been able to sort of parlay that into some offensive production. So that said, I do think he is running a little bit cold, right? He still has power play one. I think there should be a little bit more in the tank there. This is a guy that got 42 points, 2 straight seasons of 42 points. I think that's reasonable. He's pacing for 39 right now. So, if you treat him as a 42-point player, you won't be disappointed, right? Because the bangs are insane. But yeah, it's just never going to be the type of guy that pops off. And you can see why they brought in these other guys to take power play one. We had Shane Gostisbehere last year. We got, potentially Eric Gustafson this year, which didn't really pan out. But I think if Detroit is in the market for anybody, they might be looking for a guy to run that top power play because Seider ain't it, right? He's just not that type of player. He's a very valuable player in real life, not so good for fantasy outside of bangers leagues.
Yep. Can't really argue with anything there. Let's move along to the last player on the list, Jake Sanderson. 6 points now since his last point. 23 and a half minutes average time on ice in the last 5 games here. 24 and a half on the season. Similar numbers, shots per 60, 58th in shots per 60 for Sanderson, 59th for Seider, 77th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 88th Corsi, 4 per 60, up at 23rd in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60, for whatever that's worth. Tell me about Sanderson, Blake. Do you think that we're just seeing some natural regression? He started hot. He's gotten the regression now. He's on pace for 43 points on the season. Where does it all settle for Jake Sanderson?
I mean, 46-point pace. I don't know what you had him projected for, but I had him for 46, I think, or 48. Sorry. So he's kind of in line with what I thought. I just think this is like a Brock Faber, Moritz Seider kind of mold, right? It's a guy that gets a ton of deployment, and we just can't expect the world from him. Certainly at 5-on-5, like Jake Sanderson's numbers are propped up by his power play. Right, this guy's got 11 power play points of his 15 points. So that part is pretty damn nice. I think he's going to get a power play points career high there. But yeah, at even strength, it's just not what he does. This is a guy, again, playing against the top teams, best matchups usually. And I just think it's a young guy too. He's 22 years old. I do think that there's probably a world where he does get over 50 points, right? This could be a 55-point player at some point. I don't think it's going to be this year. And I don't know. It's one of these defensemen that you have on your team that you're just kind of happy to have because he's consistent, and yeah, he's pacing for 46 points, and that's valuable in fantasy. But if you're expecting much more than that, I think you're going to be disappointed.
All right. Let's move along to one more topic here. Actually, before we do that, if we didn't talk about a player that you wanted to hear about, you should join me. Mondays, 8 p.m. EST, every single week. Do a live stream. here on the Apples and Geo's YouTube and talk about all the most puzzling players. Take a gander in the Apples and Geo's Discord. Whoever people want to hear about the most, that's who I talk about on that show. You can also join live on YouTube and throw in comments. I'm usually able to get to almost every single one of those. So make sure you join 8 p.m. EST. Get your players in there that you want me to talk about. All right, Blake, let's go under the hood now with Luke Hughes. Luke Hughes, last 10 games, 1 goal, 7 assists in 19 minutes, 21 seconds. Average time on ice, 28th in shots per 60, first in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 amongst all defensemen, 8th in Corsi, 4 per 60, 11th in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Luke Hughes is under the hood, really showing off at this point. And yeah, I think this is a guy who is living up to the hype, and we're just not seeing it because Dougie Hamilton is also living up to the hype on the front end of things. He's putting pucks in the net. Luke Hughes is doing the same thing on the backside here, and I think that we should be at least cognizant of this. I don't know how much stock you really want to put into this for like rushing out to make an ad, but
Yeah.
in weeks where New Jersey has a good schedule, Luke Hughes has been dropped in a lot of leagues, I know, and so you may want to add Luke Hughes because, yeah, if he ever gets the top power play, I do think that this is a little bit of a different Luke Hughes than what we saw last year. I think he's taken another step at this point, at least offensively, which is what we care about for fantasy. I do think that Luke Hughes could be a real difference maker for fantasy if he got power play one. Whether that happens at any point this year is still very much up for debate, but I want to be cognizant of a player performing at this level for an extended stretch like Luke Hughes has.
Yeah, I love the spotlight here because, he's underrated now. Last season, he had that power play one, and he was pretty much must roster at that point. Like 25 power play points he had last year. So I like the trajectory of what Luke Hughes is doing this season, and I think the pressure's off. Right, we got Dougie Hamilton as power play one. He's their horse on the back end. Luke Hughes can kind of just go out there and do what he does, right? And I mentioned this to you earlier, Nate, but obviously he has built-in chemistry with his brother there, and he's always going to get a look with Jack. They're going to be looking for each other and probably be in on each other's points. So I really like the player. I think he's a spec ad. He's trending upwards, and you mentioned the metrics. I love that. I just think, like you said, if he does get power play one, we could be looking at a better version of Luke Hughes this year than we saw last year. But if he doesn't, we're probably still looking at a 40-point pace here, 40 to 45-point pace for Luke Hughes. And again, that's very valuable, right? That puts him in the vicinity of a guy like, players you mentioned in the preseason here, defensemen that are behind another player, right? Like Matthias Ekholm, Luke Hughes, Thomas Harley, right? These type of players that can really do some stuff. And they have that built-in insurance if the top guy ever goes down.
Yep. I like that take a lot. We got to keep rolling, though. We got to go to Move of the Week. Move of the
Woo!
Week for you, Blake, this week was what?
I was streaming hard and it's paying off. It sort of paid off. I don't know. But yeah, this week more than any week so far this year, I feel like I've really made a difference in some of my outcomes here. Like if I wasn't streaming like this, it wouldn't have worked. So lots of moves I made just today, to the Sunday, to secure victory. Some worked, some didn't, but I streamed in Samuel Urson in a bunch of spots to try and overtake goalie wins in a match. Obviously that didn't work, but I streamed him in another spot where even the points he got in the loss got me the victory in that. Like I just noticed Mason Marchment got an assist on, Thomas Harley's second goal in the Dallas game. That put me over the top. Oh, nice. Baby, I'm loving that. So, and until I get, an L from a stat correction, which happens all the time. But anyways, stuff like that. I added Eric Comrie in 2 spots after Hellebuck got confirmed on Saturday, right? So you're adding a player in that doesn't even play on the Saturday because that Winnipeg had a back-to-back. So I like to do that as well. But there wasn't really one move this week, just a series of moves. I just felt really locked in with my ads. I saved ads that I thought could make a difference, and they did. And I'm winning 4 of my 6 head-to-head leagues. I'm going to win them. That's very nice. And I do want to mention as well, really quick, just one game goalie streams. I've been really kind of digging in on those this year, and I've had some, pretty decent amount of success there. And I really like to use that strategy when the streaming week is not very good, right? Like this last one was, right? And the week upcoming is not very good. So I think that's a really good time to throw in some one game goalie streams and see what you can do. But I think I don't know that's I'm just rambling on at this point. But yeah, lots of moves, and I feel like I really was able to make a difference with my streaming this week.
All right. For myself, I think I just want to like say this to myself as much as I want to say it to everybody listening. I potentially overplayed in my hand this week. It worked out in the end, but when the matchup isn't assured, I really don't like to do what I ended up doing here and try to push it a little bit too far. I ended up winning this matchup by 16 points, and it should have been not nearly so tight. So basically, I was trying to work through what I wanted to do for the week. And so early in the week, I was, I wake up for the 3 a.m. call there on Monday mornings to get my sweet ads in early on, and Nazem Kadri was on the waivers in this league, and it didn't make any sense to me. I was like, okay, I got to pick up Nazem Kadri. So I pick up Nazem Kadri. Then Sam Montembeault comes available. This is a league where volume is big, and I pick up Sam Montembeault. He goes off. He has a great week for me. So that was obviously a great move. Then the next day, JJ Peterka is coming off of waivers. I'm like, I got to pick up JJ Peterka. Buffalo's got this great week next week. I actually think Peterka should turn things around. I believe in the talent. I got to pick up JJ Peterka. So now I'm at 3 out of 4. And then I got Petr Mrazek coming back, and I'm like, man, another volume goaltender coming off, and these are pretty rare in this league. I could have 3 volume goaltenders. I already have Merzlikins. Really running the zero G show here with these 3.
Oh yeah.
But I was like, I gotta have Petr Mrazek, and so I used the last ad of the week on Petr Mrazek back on Wednesday. And so I think like individually, all of these moves were probably good moves, right? But it led to a situation. Razik gets injured, doesn't get anything out of that game basically that I was counting on, and now all of a sudden this matchup looks a lot different than I thought it was going to. I was with the Paterka move, I was looking ahead, basically looking past this week because of how good the early week was for me, and so sometimes, especially in this particular league where I was 3-5, had the most points for, but 3-5, I actually do need to stockpile some wins at this point, right? I can't always be just thinking about what's best for the team in the long term. At some point, you got to actually win some matchups. I think it was just a case where I was maybe made one too many moves looking ahead about what would be best for the team in the long term, and I got a little bit too excited about this, utopian vision of what my team could be at some point in the future, and kind of left this week's matchup a little bit up to chance too much with too many games left on the slate. So just want to give that example so that other people can avoid making that same mistake. And it very easily could have gone too far the other direction, and I actually come out with a loss, and now I'm 3-6 instead of moving to 4-5, and that's a really tough hill to start your climb out of, right? So just wanted to throw that one out there so other people can learn from my mistake. Unfortunately, we do have one more item of business here. That is to recap the head-to-head streamer deathmatch. And unfortunately, as I mentioned before, Blake picked Anders Lee, who proceeded to have the biggest week of his life, I think. I don't know if he ever scored this many goals as a 9-year-old playing Pee Wee. I Probably not, basically, is what I'm saying. Anders Lee had a 21.75 point Cupful week. I picked up Kent Johnson. He did absolutely nothing until today and then had a 2-goal game, so brought it up to a respectable 17-point week for Kent Johnson. On the season, it is 7-2 for Blake. What do you have to say for yourself, Mr. Creamer?
I'm just happy to be here, buddy. All right. It's just pure fun. All right. Nobody wins or loses. Did you have fun, Nate? Because that's all that matters.
I'm not having fun.
Oh
This is
God! All right.
actually actively eating me up every single
I'm
week at
sorry
this
about
point.
this, buddy. You know what? I'll throw it this week. I'll give you. Well, no,
Don't you
I
dare.
gotta respect you. No, I gotta smash you again. I'm sorry, buddy.
All right, Blake, this is your chance. You pick first this week. So, sub 25% rostered on Yahoo. Who's it going to be?
Damn. I just checked and I thought this might happen. I had Marco Rossi was at 25%
Yeah.
and I was going to take him. I'm like, damn it, because he just went up to 26%. So I can't
Yeah.
take him. So I'm going to roll with Dylan Cousins this week on
Okay.
Buffalo. I'll go with the power play 1, line 2. I like, the metrics, and I think that'll be a player that can do something this week.
Yeah, I had a few options in mind. I had the two St. Louis guys
Yep.
mentioned earlier, Dylan Holloway and Jake Neighbors in mind, but I am going to go back to the well with Troy Terry this
Yeah.
week. 4 games for him. He's got 5 assists his last five, 29th in the league in shots per 60 and skating 20 minutes a night over his last 5 games. So I like that for Troy Terry. I think he should do a little bit better than he did for me last time. Come on, Troy. You can do this. I have
Didn't
faith.
you learn? What did you learn last time, Nate? I mean, isn't this the definition of insanity?
I think so, but if we know anything about my approach to fantasy hockey is that it borders on the insane. So
Okay. Oh,
I
nice.
think like that we should just get out of here at this
That's it.
point. We
Yeah,
should
that's
tell
fine.
people they got to join the Discord
Please
community.
do.
Yeah, link in the description. Get in there, join 1,500 other crazed fantasy hockey managers talking about this stuff all day and all night. Like, rate, review, subscribe, comment really does help us out. But that's going to be all that we've got for this episode. Hopefully, it brought you some value and helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, a terrific free resource. Many thanks to the band They're There for supplying the music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.